EA Sports. It's in the game.
Welcome to the Humanities, I guess. E3
maybe?
coverage, yeah.
Thanks.
What the kids on the streets are calling EBXUSN for EA, Bethesda, Xbox, UB, Sony, and Nintendo. It's a catchy title. I was out this afternoon just getting some bread from Sainsbury's, some bread and some crisps. Mm-hmm. I heard one kid just look at another and goes like, "Hey, it's EBXUSN," and he was like, "Yeah, it's my favourite week of the year." And I was like, "Yeah, I know what they're talking about. I got your street code." Hey, it's EBXUSN. I'm getting used to that now. It's fine. Right, so this year the plan is that we are going to do little short podcasts and then probably bigger ones as well when it gets to the chunky stuff like Sony and Microsoft. So we started with EA on Sunday night. Was it about 9 o'clock?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So EA were doing this strange sort of thing where they got their kind of plastic Ken doll in America, and then they got that kind of bald tattooed games man in London, which was, and they were kind of volleying sort of a baton between one another like some sort of crazy tennis athletics.
Yeah. So my first question then, for our esteemed guest, which we haven't actually introduced yet.
Oh my God! Have we got a guest? Have we got a guest?
I wasn't sure if you'd forgotten or not.
Have we got? Yeah, I was leading in.
Oh, okay. It felt a little rude. Welcome to the show once again.
Have we got a guest?
We've got a guest. Welcome back for a lovely, lovely, massive, long E3 chat again.
Guest, join us in our nest.
Join
us. I would call our guest with the EBXUSN. Look, it's the wings of James Carter from Kane and Rins.
What's happening now?
This link is the best.
It is. It's the EBXUSN. EBXUSN. I beckon you. EBXUSN. Hi, James. How are you?
You explained what that is. I'm still not sure, to be honest.
It stands for EA, Bethesda, Xbox, Ubisoft, Sony, and Nintendo.
I'll
what
go
they
with
call
E3,
on the streets.
To be honest.
EBXUSN.
Do we need to start again?
No.
No,
This is typically us.
This
Whereas some professional podcasts will be like, "Oh, in this episode we'll let you in behind the curtain." It's like we've not even got blinds. We've not got nets up, just wandering around in our pants.
I'm the only one drinking.
Innards out for everyone to see.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's nice to be back for, I think it is my first time since E3 last year, an annual visit at this point.
But you're the regularist guest now.
The regularist.
The regularist.
You were mocking me for EBXUSN.
The most regular,
word.
but I didn't realise my bowels were up for discussion this evening. But yes, I am the most regular guest.
Well,
what a load of shit!
It's bowels and all tonight.
Thanks for tuning in.
We can't even claim that we're recording this at some ungodly hour after Sony finished or anything.
It's 2 a.m. everyone.
Well, I've had a coffee. My eyes are sore, but I'm feeling a little bit giddy. So I put that down to the ancient power of EBXUSN. As witches gathered round their cauldrons. EBXUSN.
Stop trying to make EBXUSN happen.
What? How dare you?
It's like fetch. It's not happening.
No.
Speaking of which, there's a new season of RHLSTP started.
You see, that's what I was referencing.
I know what you were referencing.
Oh, you sexy boy. I've just taken a piece of cardboard and turned it into an eagle. That's by the by. So EA started this year in they're normally later than this, aren't they? I'm sure they're normally after.
They're somewhere in the middle usually, aren't they? Like between Ubi and Sony, usually they're usually quite late.
Yes, yeah, that sort of 2-3 hour gap we had was where EA would usually slot, which meant
it would have been
Ubi
more
had
like
a bit of a longer show.
Yeah, like EBXUSN.
You were growling at me then. It was like you were drowning in Rice Krispies or even Cocoa Pops.
That is just how they used to talk last year.
Really?
Yeah.
What's happening to you? Your voice is going very, very garbled.
I'm fine.
Oh, as long as you're fine, I'll try and make out what you're saying then and cover it up with twat. So, so you then sounded like you were going down a very strange spiraled plug hole.
Look, is there any noise out of my mouth that you will not insult?
At this point, no.
Oh,
because you've got a bit.
Let's just check the history books.
Oh no, James is doing it as well.
Yeah,
This
no,
is
everyone's a little robotic, drowning in digital Rice Krispies, as you say.
It's the power of EBXUSN. What have we conjured? What have we conjured?
It's the power of
The
Skype,
future.
I think, at the moment.
The future will judge us.
this
So,
is staying because you're both perfectly clear for me. So.
Right, so EA started with Titanfall 2. Now, there was a leak of the single-player trailer, I think the same day, wasn't there? Or was it?
I don't know.
Day before, possibly. Well, I think the news had started to leak out in dribs and drabs.
Well, it was. Everybody knew it was happening.
Yeah.
But that there was going to be a focus on a single-player campaign this time. But it was the first of the leaks that really kind of jumped out just ahead of time, I guess. There were some of those beforehand where you go, yeah, you might get lost in the noise of E3, but I get the feeling from Vince Campanella, was it? On stage that
Zampella,
yeah.
That he was a little nonplussed about the leak, but quite sort of chipper about it nonetheless. And they launched into the big single player trailer. What did you make of it?
Grappling hooks.
I thought it was good that there is a single player because I would never buy Titanfall just for multiplayer because that's not how I roll. I would play that campaign. That looked fun.
It's as if somebody has gone, hey, can you imagine if we crossed Gundam with The Fall and Bionic Commando and RoboCop, and everybody in the room just went like, oh, let's do that. I thought it was a great trailer in of itself. There was a lot of lore in Titanfall which really only existed in the opening sequence.
Yeah, it didn't go anywhere, yeah.
No, it didn't, and you can see why they went the places they did with the first game, because it was a very robust multiplayer game, very complex, tons of fun. But after the stuff that happened with Activision, you could see why they want to put something out as soon as possible. Plus, so many people would go like, "Oh, I only buy Call of Duty for the multiplayer anyway." Yeah. So.
Yeah. Getting it on the two machines was probably going to help as well. Because, I mean, let's be fair, Titanfall had a strong start and then kind of died on its arse a bit, didn't it? After a couple of months. Like, all I heard was people saying you can't get a game, it's quiet. It's, there's barely anyone playing it.
It didn't seem to take long before there were sort of 300 to 500 people on there regularly and not much else. Certainly, about a month afterwards, it got very tough to finish the quote-unquote single-player missions, the nine missions or whatever there were.
I think that was the point to their credit where they gave this season pass out for free.
Yeah,
I'm sure not long after I got an Xbox One, it was available free.
And the game on Xbox One, certainly possibly PC as well, had been on sale within the first year, I think, or about a year afterwards, for about £7.50 or something, £10 with the season pass or whatever. So yeah, it was available to pick up pretty cheaply fairly early on. But yeah, I think you're right. I think it was just they needed to get something out on a deadline in order to satisfy the deal that EA had signed with them under the old EA Partners program. And don't get me wrong, I only played about 5 hours of that, but it was a heck of a good multiplayer game.
Yeah.
Really good. Even I could tell with my limited ability and knowledge of multiplayer games. But I could have sworn I'd heard that there was going to be a single-player campaign a good sort of week or so before this conference.
It had been.
It was common knowledge, yeah.
Yeah, it'd been spoken about for probably since before last E3, because there were
possibly, yeah.
there was stuff being spoken about last year where they were saying, oh, the next game's coming to PS4 and the game's going to have a single player campaign this time.
They'd already acknowledged officially that Titanfall 2 existed. As far as I knew, it was fairly common knowledge, if not official, that there was going to be a single player element, and they were maybe going to beef it up over the kind of very loose framework of the quote unquote single player missions, or story missions, I guess they were called in the first game. So the only thing that actually leaked was the trailer itself the day beforehand.
Yeah.
So
the actual content of
which was,
as
I understand it, that was someone guessing a private URL that they'd put the trailer up under.
Okay.
Or finding it, basically, if anything goes on the internet early, someone's going to find it. Between patents being reauthorized and copyright being, trademarks being reclaimed, etc., it tends to be found pretty re-registered.
I thought it looked good. I thought it looked like an adventure. It looked a little bit left of centre. Yes, there was a degree of the familiar to it, but there's something about those robots that I absolutely adore. And I know the guy that designed the originals just got a load of model kits together and just started gluing them together and just fashioning these beasts. And I love how built for purpose they look.
Yes.
And there's something quite left of centre of that they don't look like they've been streamlined to sell model kits. They actually look like they've been built to as weapons of war or for manufacturing or for farm use. And it took me off guard a little bit, the levels of the aspects that reminded me of indie game The Fall, which is really, really underrated. Well, if anybody hasn't seen The Fall, it's about an Iron Man like suit that falls down on this distant planet, and the person inside is dead or catatonic. I think they're dead. And it's about how the suit starts to function for itself, starts to think for itself, and how other suits look upon it and basically judge it because it's going beyond its directives. And the more that it kind of starts to be self-aware, the more it doesn't want to die. And I got that kind of Ed 209 meets sort of the birth of intelligence. And I'm curious about that because that's something that's always fascinated me.
I don't know if it's been confirmed, but it sounded like voice of the Titan was Peter Cullen. It very much sounded like it if it wasn't actually him.
Because I thought that at first, and then I was wondering if it was Laura Bailey's husband. I'm going to have to punch this in because I'm forgetting his name on the fly. Let me see. Travis Willingham, who was in Halo 5, and he's got that very kind of gruff kind of voice anyway. And I was thinking if he's going a little bit more Peter Cullen with it, and they've put the robotic sort of voice on there.
Sure, yeah. There's a lot of manipulation being done with it anyway. So,
but yeah, it's because it wasn't quite Cullen, but it got that sort of
definitely.
Yeah.
And that very much puts in focus exactly what you're saying, which is the Titan is going to be a character in this, and it's about exploring what these Titans are with AI clearly running them, because even in the first game they could follow you around and do a certain amount of automated actions on their own, and it seems to be that they're almost in a similar way to Cortana with Master Chief in Halo, looking at when you've got two entities acting as one, what's the what sort of shared consciousness or what sort of relationship do they end up having. In a similar way to sort of, I guess, Pacific Rim explored some of the same stuff, although it was between the two pilots rather than between robot and pilot, or mech suit and pilot in this case.
I'm up for that.
Yeah, very interesting. Mechanically, the grappling hook obviously adds to the mobility, which was already great, but I guess it just allows you to get up height over the Titans when you're on foot a bit quicker, a bit snap around a bit, and obviously end up grappling potentially onto other pilots and that sort of thing.
And in the single player, there's going to be some cool shit to jump off.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, what's put a grapple hook in if you're not going to make some cool parkour shit?
It will be interesting to see whether we play as pilot or Titan or both in the single player, actually. That'd be very...
Yeah,
that'd be cool, yeah. Taking control of the Titan on his own for a bit, maybe.
Oh, right, I hadn't thought of that. That would be kind
I'd
of
go
cool.
for the entire single player as the Titan, to be honest. In some way. They won't do it because they'll want to train you for multiplayer, but...
The co-op would be really cool if
cool.
one controlled one and one controlled the other. That would be incredible.
Oh, see, me and you could do our standard technique, which is you try and be a sniper and I just stand in the middle going, I have a big gun, ha ha ha.
It would indeed be that. The more I think about the potential dogfights in the game, that the multiplayer could well be somewhere between Spider-Man and Attack on Titan. With all the kind of swinging around and stuff, and I really loved the bit in the trailer towards the end where the guy launched out of the Titan, grappling hooked onto somebody else who was coming out of another one, and kicked the fuck out of him in midair.
That was a big moment.
And you know that somebody's going to just master the heck out of that. It's going to be so many people like swinging around, and I know there's been a few grappling hooks this year. It's almost been year of the grappling hook. At E3, but they pulled off the multiplayer with such panache with the original game. I think that they're more or less just doing tweaks on what they've got. I am curious about the single player because it so looks like my kind of thing.
Yeah.
And those moments like when they got the Titans dropping from the ship. In the sky, because we didn't see that in the original. You just called in your Titan and saw the glowing star sort of crashing into the ground, but
you didn't see it from the opposite.
No,
way,
I love that.
Yeah, very much.
It makes them look almost like these sort of these incredible caskets that are being thrown from the sky in the same way as the ODST were in Halo.
Yeah. No, it all looked very cool. And having bought the game on both PC and the original game on both PC and Xbox One, and then not playing it sufficiently to, in my mind, justify the purchase. This time around, I am going to be more hesitant. But yeah, if word starts getting around that single player is as good as its potential looks like it could be, and given the people involved at Respawn are not unfamiliar with. Certainly single player campaigns that I've enjoyed in the past. Yeah, I could really go for this, and then multiplayer will just be if I can hop on with friends, great. If not, fine by me. What else was there? Now swords for the Titans as well. That's been known about for a little while, but again, nice to see in action. Getting some full on melee options with Titans, more Titan classes now available as well. And there was one moment where someone who was about to be killed teleported or cloaked and disappeared, and then came up behind a pilot and did a takedown on them. As far as I know, that was a new ability. I don't think that was in the original. So yeah, all round, really nice showcase of here's some new stuff that if you're interested in Titanfall, you're going to pick up on, and if you weren't previously, now there's a single player campaign for you as well. Looks very exciting. Plus, multi-platform's great.
How do you think that the PlayStation audience is going to react to that?
Oh, it's shit now. It's multi-platform.
Because
that's
that's the Xbox audience. The PlayStation audience will be chomping at the bit, I would assume.
They will say that we can now play it properly.
I don't know. I mean, I get the feeling that the PlayStation audience are only angry if the other side get it first or get it exclusively. But in this case, I don't really. I've not seen that level of kind of pith and bile that, say, Rise of the Tomb Raider received. So, yeah, I must admit, I'm curious about this, and that. Moreover, I'm looking at that single player, and I'm seeing a film that I would watch, and the chance to kind of play that seems pretty cool.
Vincent Price as the Titan.
So, what do you make of it, Pat? Is it something that you'd be interested in?
I rent it, I borrow it, but like, you know what I'm like with shooters. I'll play it once and then I won't play it again. Like, it's very, very rare a shooter will catch me the way like Destiny did. Like, I don't gel with them very much, but I do like runny, jumpy, climby, wahoo. So I'd probably buy it for the runny, jumpy, climby, wahoo, and the bit where the Titan wrecks something with a sword, because I will be shouting swear words at my screen while I do that, because I enjoyed that. You've seen me play Destiny when I've had a sword.
I have.
Yeah, it's incoherent rage, and it's fun.
This is launching right up close to Battlefield 1 and Infinite Warfare. How do you think it's gonna do in that regard?
That's worrying.
It's bizarre, isn't it?
That's not really, like, in an already flooded kind of like season where COD and Battlefield fight it out anyway. And I mean, we'll get to them later, but they're both looking reasonably good this year. Like, sure, they're putting the extra bit on, but is it enough? Like, I mean, Titanfall seems to be like kind of the middle of the year game, like the Doom position. Like, bring it out like May.
Well, that's when the last one came out, wasn't it?
Yeah, bring it out like when there's nothing about, and you'll sell dozens of like hundreds of, but like bringing it out at the same time as COD and Battlefield, that feels like a stupid idea.
The really interesting thing is, Battlefield in this feels, rather I should say, look so different to me this year. Yes, they're both online shooters, but Titanfall is, I think it's a much smaller player base, whereas Battlefield 1 is up to 32 players on each side, so 64 total, I think. I think that's right.
I think right, yeah.
Titanfall, much smaller, so smaller maps, much sort of more close quarters, rather than a sort of spread out entire battle going on. And the setting's just wildly different, obviously. We're talking World War I era combat ostensibly, although there are obviously, it still seems quite fast paced, whereas Titanfall is futuristic fast. It's all about mobility and zipping around, wall running. That's just not what Battlefield is. So the oddest thing for me is that actually, in terms of competing against themselves, sure, if you are a shooter fan, they are competing, but actually kind of not, maybe, because they seem so different in terms of the way they look, like, they look and they play and whatever. But versus,
is your spaceman going to buy Call of Duty
as well? Is just like, well, now shooter fans have got 3 to buy, plus I mean Wildlands and whatever else. There's plenty of other stuff coming out as well.
Well, I'm going to throw something else into the mix.
And you want to buy what your mates are buying, don't you? So you can play with your mates.
Well, let's factor in something else, because we've got new Destiny DLC in September as well. So even aside from Battlefield 1, you've got 3 sci-fi games that are going to be sort of neck and neck with one another. And multiplayer-wise, Overwatch looks like it's a kind of a train that's not going to come off the tracks.
I think I know Destiny people tend to play for a long time, but I think September, something approach 6 weeks to 2 months before any of these games come out, which none of them are until November, I don't think. I can see a lot of people who bounce from shooter to shooter when they come out, getting the Destiny DLC, playing that, being done with it. It's the fact that these are like all a week apart. I haven't got the release dates up, but I think it's Titanfall 2 and a week later Battlefield 1, or vice versa, and then 2 weeks later Call of Duty. It seems very close together to me.
I mean, one of the I think it was GameSpot. They were talking to Vince. Is it Zampella? Is it
Zampella? Yeah.
And they would say, I think it was Danny O'Dwyer was saying that people seem to be done with Titanfall after about 2 months, and Vince was basically saying, well, honestly, if you can keep hold of people for 2 months and keep them interested, that's actually pretty cool.
Yeah, that's fair. And then you get another spike when you release some DLC. Yeah.
I think if Destiny's brought
Makes
anything
sense.
into the mix, though, it's of having these little moments which will keep people interested in playing, and it'll be interesting if they've got a plan, like a tale, as they say in marketing, like to take the original game and then have a through line for different bits that you add to it, or different expansions, and it'd be interesting to see if there's a master plan from there.
So I was wrong. Battlefield 1 October the 21st and Titanfall 2 the week after.
Wow.
Oh no! Come on. Come now.
But where would you put that in the lineup? Because like from September through to March next year is busier with games than I've seen it ever. This it's not even as if you can go, well, that's kind of a February March game, that, because
and we've got a couple of games that are December and stuff. Yeah. Call of Duty 4th November, so the week after.
People looking up on the internet,
something else on the 11th, actually, I think.
Looking up on the net, people seem to think that the voice of the Titan is a gentleman called Darren DePaul, who was actually Samuel Hayden in Doom. So it's not Peter Cullen.
Oh, it sounds like him.
Well, yeah, I presume that's why people have kind of made the connection, but I can't see a direct link for his name on that Titan. But it'd be interesting to see if the different Titans have got different voices as well.
Like comedy voices, do you mean?
No.
Hello! When it drops.
That would be marvellous.
I'd pick that one.
I know you would. And paint it like a clown.
Greetings! I'm here to be your robot for the day.
This is why you don't make games.
You may call me Arthur.
You know what you deserve?
What?
You deserve Madden.
Oh, I even saw you click that on the Google Doc. I saw what you...
Damn, you can see this. I keep thinking it's my word notes. But how dare you?
Look, there's me. Oh,
so
you had then.
Right, thanks for joining us. Bye. The weird thing was with that this was the point where they swung over to London to do egg chasing.
By the way, England won this game, right? It was like in America, like, here's the thing. To Peter Moore in London. Hey, we won.
I thought that the guy who's the guy that was in the States who announced it? Is it?
I mean Andrew Wilson?
Andrew Wilson, yeah. He is the villain in Mirror's Edge Catalyst.
Yes, he is.
I'm wondering how they kind of approach that, of just like, he's been a right cunt to us. Should we put him as the villain? Should we ask him if we can use him as the villain? And then that's just like some big...
Stick it in. You won't notice. He doesn't play games.
Yeah. Struth. But I thought he was very professional with the way that he led in with the start of the show, but also kind of emotionless and terrifying. He looked like somebody that David Cage would use in Detroit, and you'd go like, fuck.
I'm Andrew Wilson, and this is my story.
And then it went to old Laughing Boy in London. I haven't got anything to say about Madden. I presume it's good for people that like American football. I believe they enjoy it.
Well, for me, like, the Madden thing wasn't really about the Madden. It was about the esports thing they're doing.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't take anything from it. Like, sure, they're going to do the ball again. Fine.
There's no need to take the piss out of people that like sports.
Yes, there is.
I've seen a lot of this today, and it's the equivalent of somebody taking the piss out of anything that they don't like.
Have you tried being ginger? It's not easy. I get what I can.
It sounds like you're announcing a one-man play. Have you tried?
We'll get to one-man plays later, won't we?
I know what you mean, CJ. There's a futility. It's easy to ridicule the way that whatever it is people spend their spare time, whether it be watching soaps, whether it be going to the theatre, watching TV, playing video games, watching sports, whatever it is, it's easy to say, well, that's a waste of time, and what I do with my spare time isn't. And it's completely futile and pointless and doesn't make any sense, because we all have ways of spending our spare time. And Madden isn't the big seller video game that it once was, but EA, of course, are going to talk about sports games, because that's what they're in the business of. They are still the biggest or most successful producer of
no doubt. I
sports
like the way
games.
they made the focus about the esports initiative they're doing this year. Though. Like,
Well,
it
that's
wasn't just like, here's 10 sports games in a row, enjoy. Like no.
Yeah, that's part of the reason why Madden was presented in London, bizarrely. But not that bizarrely when you consider Peter Moore's being head of EA Sports previously. He's now head of the esports initiative. That's all rolled in with this. And I actually heard an interesting point made on the DLC podcast earlier in the week, that every company has to have something they're pushing as an esport, and it's not good enough to try and make a game that may or may not work as an esport and wait for it to happen. They need to push it because of the advertising money that's involved. And when you think of it that way, Madden, FIFA, something like that, not only can you push video game advertising, like with fighting game esports coverage, they push you fight stick manufacturers and low latency BenQ screen manufacture, products and stuff. But with this, you can push sports products and video game products and technology products and whatever else. So you can really start to tie up some heavy advertising money, because as soon as you say we've got 10, 20, 30,000 people watching a stream, you just start sticking logos all over it, and money rolls in. They're making a massive amount. So a company like EA needs to push games as esports. It's interesting they're using their sports games rather than their shooters, is all I can think to say on it, to be honest. But it makes sense.
I think there's the aspect as well that there are probably people in the States who the only game they play is Madden.
Yep.
In the same way as, there are folks maybe like, it's easy to wrap them up in kind of mocking again, because that's what a lot of us can kind of do. But there are people who will just buy like FIFA, Grand Theft Auto, Assassin's Creed, and these are kind of the mainstays for them. They've enjoyed them in the past, and they don't really want to veer away from them or have the money to veer away from. Heck, when I was a kid, I used to play like Kick-Off and Your Sensible World of Soccer like to pieces, like more than any other game. I know as a touchstone for us, I know a guy, and all that he plays is Destiny. Like, he bought a PS4 for Destiny because it really caught his eye, and I think that's where EA gets a lot of their focus from the sports stuff, and with them veering into not just competitions, but later on they were saying like there are going to be achievements for like charities and stuff like that.
I actually took a bit of umbrage at that bit.
Why?
Because, like, hey, play these games and support. No, the game, like, results of you playing the games does not change the charity pit at all. Like, you get a bonus for playing the thing. Like, they're just saying play our games for a bit and then we'll donate $1 million, but it's not related to the games at all. Just play them. We'll give you some rewards every now and again, and then we'll donate $1 million. Like, there's no monetary. There's no.
But on the other hand, the alternative is
spiked me a bit, annoyed me.
Well, yeah, but the alternative is to say, right, everyone get on and play Battlefield 4 or Battlefront or whatever it might be. They picked 4 games, I think,
and then they don't
events tied to them.
Yeah.
The alternative is to say, go and play these, and if you don't, we're not giving money to charity. So they
I
have
suppose.
to say, we're giving the money anyway, but they're tying it, I think, for might be either Battlefield or Battlefront. If you are part of the team that reaches whatever the goal that they've set is, then you get a free gold pack unlock for whatever it is, They've given people incentive. They're building it all around this sort of week of E3. Play loads of games, play loads of EA games, and just get involved in that. In terms of the charities, I mean, this actually all came after Mass Effect, as I remember. But it ties in here anyway. In terms of the charities, the way they kind of pitched it was they wanted to focus on STEM-related charities, and they've picked charities that are about promoting rights and assistance for either women or ethnic minorities or disabled people within kind of STEM type environments, usually IT based and like video game based stuff, which just seems really cool that they've picked out those 5 charities, which are Code.org, Code 2040, He for She, Special Effect, and National Centre for Women in IT. I thought that was a really nice touch. I agree, it's kind of bizarre. If they want to give $1 million to those charities, do that.
Do
it
it.
doesn't need to be tied to the games, but
Exactly. Yeah. It's the split in the middle that annoyed me. It was a
Yeah,
little
but
jarring.
again, it's company profile,
they
and
have
you
to
will
make a big deal of it. Yeah,
you will always get things happening behind the scenes, and you will always get the company push to give themselves sort of a I don't know, a better perspective. Especially, let's not forget, EA were voted one of the worst companies sort of in the world not too long ago.
Well, the ending of Mass Effect 3 was bad, wasn't it? So,
but
you. But I mean, I'll give like another. This may just be behind it like a tax break for EA. Because they might have to spend a certain amount of money to save a certain amount of money. This sort of thing goes off in boardrooms. I remember like years ago, a guy that I knew got a record deal, had loads of money sort of thrown at pre-production and production, and then the record company really weren't arsed with them after that, and they found out that basically if the record company went over a certain threshold by a certain point, that they'd save more than they were spending. So it may well be that on EA's front.
there are all sorts of business reasons to give money to charities.
Frankly, I don't care.
Doesn't matter.
As long as money's going to charity, and however they spin that, if they can bring people into to play because I'm sure there was something related to like achievements as well, with like them donating for every time people do certain bits in their games anyway. However that money's going to charity, and I'm sure they can put it to good use, and there's always stuff behind the scenes, but you've got to keep your eye on the prize and just go,
I mean, I'd just much rather they go, by the way, we're doing this. Like, I'd have felt much more positively about the whole thing. It's just the divide between the thing they're asking the gamers to do and then what they're doing, it just doesn't seem to like. It didn't link for me as someone
again, there's
begs and scrapes all damn day for stuff. Like,
there's a tail that leads from it, which is continual promotion for EA, and also awareness for those charities as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So it's not just that one and done.
Yeah, they could have just given the money quietly, told no one about it, and still got, if there are any business reasons behind why they might want to do that, still got the benefit of that. But that doesn't get the charities any coverage, and it doesn't get them coverage. And let's face it, that's part of the reason businesses get involved in charities, is to be able to do that. And they could have just come on and said, here's 5 charities we've picked, and here's $1 million we're pledging to give them. But what that doesn't do is get necessarily players engaged. And they get the round of applause, and they maybe get an article written on every news site saying, hey, EA just gave all this money, isn't that wonderful? But by tying it into something, even if the players playing the game was unrelated, by tying it in, it means they can actually call it a Play to Give program and release a press release and get coverage throughout the week of E3 that they're asking players to do this.
I suppose, I can see that point,
But also they can get coverage sort of as that increases as well. If they're like, well, we've now raised this amount of money, Oh, these FIFA players are doing this separate thing themselves. There are like lead-ons from there. It can spider outwards, and as we say, whatever the the darker sort of aspect that you can, the more skeptical aspect you can look on it. If the money's being raised by charities, if there's that continual awareness and money being raised, and it keeps on building, fair enough.
Yeah. I think
all gold.
Where I agree with Paddy is, so what this does is, if players of these games get an email or find out that there's this unlock, they get something in the game, they go and find out what it is, what they have to do, and they also then find out why, and they've got links to these charities, and therefore maybe find out what these charities are and why EA are giving to them. That's great. That means that the players get that information. It would have been nice if there was some sort of direct contribution the players were making, even within the game or within games, to help the charities themselves. But EA kind of had to say, no, the money's going anyway, because they want to make that clear that they're not tying money to players come and play our games or buy our game or spend more time than you would have otherwise in our game, or we won't give the money. That's carrot and stick type thing.
Yeah,
so they have to say it's been done otherwise. But it would be nice if there was a bit more engagement, rather than someone just thinking, I want a gold pack in Battlefront or whatever, I'm going to play this game, it's for charity, who cares. But those 5 charities, seeing them pop up there, Special Effects, a charity that I know about already. The other 4, I'd heard of 2 of them, I think, but went and did a little bit of reading about it, and it's a lovely thing for EA to have done, to shine a light on the amazing work that those charities do. So.
I have a more pressing question, a far more serious question. Who was your favourite Madden professional player? Was it Eric Problem Right or Zach Serious Mo Lane?
The one with the broken collarbone, who had to nonetheless stand on a stage and talk about how he was going to take the other guy down or whatever. And he actually went and told the true story of how he broke his collarbone as well.
What was that again? I know it wasn't very
was something
impressive,
ridiculous.
Was it?
No, it was stupid. I can't even remember now, but at the time I was thinking, you could have said anything. Anything
Punched
you
a bear.
wanted. Yeah. Fell off a skateboard even, something stupid like that. But no. I just remember standing there thinking, why are we talking about this? I guess they felt they had to address it in some way. But
And 20 points for the, I think, one of the most awkward on-stage moments of the whole show. Just 8 Madden players standing there trying, just not knowing what to do with their hands. Except the one who had it in a sling. But I enjoyed that moment. I enjoyed that. And you knew they were going to talk to the collarbone guy, didn't you? Like, which one did we pick on? How about you?
I think I tuned out at that point mentally.
Oh, you missed it. It was scintillating television.
James, are you a fan of the computer game Mass Effect?
yes, we're talking about the first one there.
Any of them leading up to Mass Effect Andromeda, of which we've seen strange stuff the last number of years. I remember production sketches and people seemingly being held in some sort of room with a giant light, being quizzed on what they were doing, and then a man wandering away from the screen, and now a little bit more.
So my answer is yes, loved the first game. The second one I thought was an interesting way to streamline a heavily sort of RPG into something more shooter-like, while still getting the story across. The third one I kind of felt did wrap everything up, but the ending I wasn't a great fan of the ending, and since I've just I'm happy with what Mass Effect was, not massively excited for the new one, which doesn't help that we've had 2 years in a row now of let's listen to devs talk about their hopes and dreams for a game that we know nothing about. And hopes and dreams for games would be absolutely fine, except we have had multiple examples over the years of games. Last year, Criterion, we heard about the game that they hoped and dreamed to have made that doesn't exist apparently anymore. So
was that last year? I'm sure.
It was maybe 2 years. It might have been 2 years ago. Yeah.
That paraglider's been flying for a while, isn't it?
Where Criterion, a company that no one really knew existed anymore, were making a game that no one knows if it exists anymore, and now are working on Star Wars VR, which we'll get to later. So I get, and there are a lot of people I saw, or a few people certainly I saw on Twitter saying, great, Mass Effect Andromeda, can't wait. Yeah, what little bit we saw looks excellent. What little bit we saw, to me, looked no different from what Mass Effect is. You called it Mass Effect, I know what the game's going to look like. You showed me nothing as far as I'm concerned, and that may sound harsh, but 2 years in a row now, a game that's apparently coming out in 9 months, where's the game? You get away with that 1 year because it's a big game, it's going to take a lot to make, they don't have assets to show or videos to show or whatever, fine. nothing again this year.
I mean, as a non-Mass Effect fan, I've not played them. I want to at some point, but who has time these days?
I think they're on sale on PSN at the minute, aren't they? Like
Are they?
all of them with all of the DLC.
Are they?
Yeah.
Oh, I haven't turned on the PS3 in friggin' months. That's probably why I haven't noticed. But like, as a non, I want to play them, but it's finding the time to get them in. Yeah, I didn't get anything from this. I mean, I understand people love it, and I was like, oh, cool. I was like, oh, you are the alien this time. Like, just gone somewhere else, haven't you?
To be fair, you were the alien in the last 3 games as well, so I don't know what's new about that.
They said like, oh, we're going to encounter all new aliens, and I recognised like all of them. Like, and I know that's the one with the blue hair that you do the sex with, and there's the big guy. Like, I recognise these people even though I've not played them because they're so like in the cultural video game zeitgeist. It's like, of course I know that the blue hair thing is called an Asari. I knew that, and I've not played them. I don't know. I want to see an actual game in there somewhere. And I mean, I wouldn't play it until I'd played the first 3 anyway, so I wouldn't buy it for a while anyway.
Again, do you think this is a staggered release within of information, given that we've also got Gamescom and Paris Games Week?
They did say they're going to,
because it's one of those kind of games where they can release like, oh, by the way, this character's in it. That's the whole Gamescom show. Like Street Fighter.
I mean, like they can show a little bit more potentially at Gamescom, and then a little bit more.
They
again
did say
at,
there would be more announcements in the fall, didn't they? So absolutely. But they're also big enough games and expansive enough games that they could have shown a trailer here. They could have done anything they liked, obviously. Why should they do what I think they might have done? But they could have shown a full, proper trailer here, and then shown a demo mission, and then shown the character that's going to be in it. There's so much stuff in these games. People are going to be interested in the way the dialogue trees work, whether the way the morality system works, the way the combat works, what the new races are. There's so much stuff you can show off about this game without peeling back too much of that curtain. And it just felt like 2 years in a row of, we want to tell you this game exists, but we don't really have anything to show. And for the
about
people,
3 years actually as well.
It's Mass Effect. Whee!
And for the people for whom hearing Mass Effect Andromeda and seeing a few second clips of some artwork or just a character in motion or a picture of a character, whatever it might be, that wireframe face that they were kind of tweaking and animating and stuff. For people who are really excited about it, that might be enough. Just a little sort of teaser, and that's great. But for anyone in my shoes who played the original trilogy, really enjoyed them, but kind of needs to be convinced that there's another reason to go back to Mass Effect, I got nothing. I should be excited for this game. Played all 3 of them, played through the first 2 multiple times. I should be desperate to go back to this series, and I'm not. And I don't know if that's my fault or EA's, but at the moment, if EA aren't showing me anything, I'm inclined to blame them.
It's a communication problem. They're not giving us anything. By the way, October is when the next lot of info drops, apparently.
Yeah. Which is
not in line with any show, is it?
No, Gamescom.
Is there that Games Award thing that Jeff Keighley's involved with? Is that around then?
Oh, maybe.
Because that would be a pretty big.
When's Paris Games Week?
Or was October Paris Games Week?
Yeah,
I thought it was way earlier than that. Oh, okay. I'm probably
August is Gamescom, and then EGX end of September. I think might be Paris Games Week.
Yeah, so they've still got the option to give us more of that stuff later on. I mean, for my part, I love the visuals. I love the sense of adventure. Yeah. It all really spoke to me. I've always been curious about Mass Effect without getting into it. I don't really know much BioWare stuff, but I'm very, very wary after Dragon Age Inquisition, which to me was held together with sellotape, was broken, was barely releasable, and filled with the sort of rubbish that people criticise Ubi for having, to a lesser degree of satisfaction. Also, a dissolving horse. But this time they didn't wheel on some sort of electric cellist.
So for the Mass Effect games, the first one, I think, certainly as far as I can remember, was the least robust technically, and that was simply because it wasn't terribly well optimized, so there were frame rate issues and stuff like that, and control issues on the PC, I think, because it had been designed around console, because Microsoft initially published that game on Xbox 360. So
yeah, they owned BioWare at that point, didn't they?
No, I don't think so. It was before EA bought them, but I think they just had a publishing deal for Mass Effect.
Okay,
I think that's right. And that one was the ropiest, but they never felt like they were held together by string and good intentions. They always felt fairly robust, to me at least. Other people may have had problems with them, technically, of course. But yeah, I remember you saying that Inquisition, really felt held. And yet, a lot of other people, I think, at the time there was a lot of buzz about that, and then of course,
Game of the Year for a
Witcher
lot of
3
people.
came out 6 months later. And everyone sort of went, oh, yeah, maybe Dragon Age Inquisition doesn't look as good next to this. That was the sense I got, but I think what's going to become apparent through these podcasts is whether or not you feel other people are excited about something's going to come down to your echo chamber on Twitter, etc., who you follow or what podcasts you listen to or whatever, and other opinions are available, I guess. Maybe Mass Effect Andromeda looked amazing to you, but to me, for a game that's supposed to be coming out in less than a year, that's as big as that game, they should have not a game developer. I would have thought for a 40 to 60 hour RPG game, they would have a bit more to show than what they did. Just seems strange to me. To the point where I wouldn't be surprised if October was, hey, here's all this stuff we've got to show, but the game's delayed 6 months.
It looks like a game that's not ready to come out, doesn't it?
Well, we don't know. They didn't show us anything.
Yeah.
No, I mean, whilst I agree that there can be a staggered sort of release of build up and information to the game coming out, there are the forums there to be able to do that. I don't know. Sometimes you look at things and you go, is it really ready?
Wireframe animations does not seem like
here's a
something
thing.
you show. Yeah.
Here's a thing. Do you think they're pulling a sort of semi Fallout 4? Do you think they're saying, look, they're going to October, they're going to do, right, here's half an hour of the game. Boom. Here's a big show. Like this is the game. Check it out. Look at it all. You can buy it in 3 months.
That's what I think.
Yeah, out in March maybe. Yeah, maybe they've got
that's
it
probably
ready.
a good idea for this sort of thing. Because I mean, look, we've all been teased by. I mean, we'll get to it later, but like No Man's Sky, for instance. You know, we've been waiting on that for like 3 years now. And I'm still going to buy it, but it's like, okay, yeah, we get it. It looks great. Just come on, show me. Like,
but we've also seen like the amount of games that are coming out between the end of August and March. So maybe they didn't want to get swallowed up in the great well of those. And
no, release it in October, it'd be fine.
See, I would agree with you if EA didn't only have 8 things to show. It started to feel an awful lot more like, oh, now I get why EA didn't want to do a conference, because they've got very little to show.
Well, I started to wonder about Mass Effect, and in the same way as I kind of wonder about Dead Space at EA. That I thought, well, maybe they're burying sort of Dead Space because they've got all the Star Wars stuff now. But I also wonder kind of how Mass Effect sits within that as well. I don't know if it's just me going like, hey, there's space and also space, but I think a lot of people would like to see a new Dead Space, and I don't think there's a chance in hell of it happening.
I mean, the strange thing is that none of the Star Wars games they're making, aside from the Old Republic, which is already out, as far as I know, do what Mass Effect does, which is, yes, action, but primarily it's characters and dialogue and investigation, discovery and exploring a whole universe, or a whole galaxy, I should say, rather. What we've seen of the Star Wars games they have out now or have coming out don't sound like a Mass Effect thing. Again,
I've heard that
we don't know enough about them, but
yeah, I've heard in the MMO one that you can play as a Jedi or a Sith, but it doesn't seem to make an awful lot of difference from what I've heard. Like you still have the same story things happen, and the same sort of things happen. Like things don't even really change at all that much, which is very strange.
And likewise, none of what we've seen of now, at least 2 of the Star Wars games that are coming are third-person action-y type games. Obviously, the Visceral one more of a story-driven one, but none of them that we've seen or heard anyone talking about suggest they're a horror game, which is what Dead Space should be. So again, is it really stepping on anyone's toes? I think the bigger problem is Visceral are doing a Star Wars game, so they don't have time to make a Dead Space game. But the list of EA's franchises that are mothballed at the moment is baffling, because EA, your Activisions of the world have of recent years kind of started to rely on a few key franchises to make their money and dialed back a lot of what else they're doing. EA until this year, I've never really felt that way, but this year it was like Titanfall, Sports, Star Wars, Battlefield. That's EA.
I mean,
and that was a strange feeling.
It would be interesting with Dead Space to see EA maybe take a similar tack to what's happening with Resident Evil 7, because the first of the Dead Space novels isn't particularly a science fiction novel at all. It's set in Mexico, and it's set at the beginning of finding something underwater that scientists can't quite process, and these sort of warped creatures that are walking out of the ocean, and this is just all tied up in kind of Day of the Dead kind of lore within Mexico, and a scientist that goes down there to investigate it, who's not affected by it, but the people around him are, and yet there's this corporation that want to find out more about it, and when news leaks, people become it builds up the religion that's then referenced within Dead Space.
Sure.
Dead Space
presumably
2 and
they unearth one of the obelisks. I can't remember what they're called.
Yeah, it's one of the shards. Yeah, that's it. And there's some fantastic stuff in that novel, like when the lead guy and his assistant go down in a bathoscope, and the assistant starts going mad and basically starts, I'm sure he like cuts off his own fingers and starts writing in blood all around the inside of his bathoscope. It's a fantastic novel, but the thing that I loved about it was so far removed from Dead Space. There was that definite connection, but it wasn't particularly a deep galaxy alien influence piece of science fiction. It was something that was quite sinister and horror based, but very grounded. And they could absolutely do that, tie it into Dead Space, directly, and just have this like really creepy, unusual game. And I'd like to see them take that tack, if nothing else.
Yeah, I happened to be talking Dead Space with a couple of people on Twitter today during the football match of all things, and those first two games I was incredibly fond of, and I think it's a real shame that after kind of taking their time to put out a sequel because they weren't sure if the first one sold enough, second one did really well, third one then came out and got a very poor reaction, and I wonder if they've just become a bit shy about doing anything with it now.
But that annoys me, because Dead Space 3 is my favourite one. I love that game. I loved the snowy stuff. I thought it was great.
Yeah, I know plenty of people who actually feel quite positively. I didn't, but I didn't play that much of it. I only got to the point where you could start doing the crafting stuff, and just kind of felt that the atmosphere for me didn't feel right, so I never went back to it. But
I mean, it looked to me like the first Dead Space I really enjoyed, but it came out, it sold modestly, and then it seemed to be one of those games that hit the sort of £5 mark, and people were going like, "Oh, you should pick this up." And it's like, "Oh yeah, I'll give that a go," and it built up a fan base purely around kind of it being cheap and people not being able to kind of say no to it at that price. The second game seemed to be more action orientated, but it was a great contrast to the original, and that was more of a runaway success. And I think whether it be games or films or whatever, when you get something that hits that kind of high, more people try to get their fingers in the pie and control it, and that is what seems to have happened with the third one. That so many people still really enjoy it. I think it's great. I've not played it, but it is one of those like that I'm kind of hoping come to Xbox One backwards compatibility, because it'd be nice to go through them all. Like and at least have that momentum of going like from 1 to 2 to 3, and that sort of clear run at them.
But yeah, I agree. I think you could, if you're worried about Star Wars, Mass Effect, and Dead Space all being science fiction space games, set it on Earth. Do something different with it. Make it a more routine horror story. Take out a lot of the fancy weapons, if you like, and strip it back. Kind of Alien 3, probably not something I want to mention, but you wouldn't know that was set in space. Not really.
True.
Doesn't matter. And
Right.
you've got a situation where you've got these aliens, if we're talking about a Dead Space, take away the weapons, go back to what the first game was, which is mining tools, and strip it back even further if you like. Have it set even earlier when you don't have the futuristic stuff.
If anybody's curious about the novel that I'm referencing, it's Dead Space Martyr.
I've heard of it, but I've never read it.
By B.K. Evanson, and I loved its pieces. I thought it was fantastic.
I'll make a note of that because I would like to read it.
Yeah, I'd be interested to know what you think, because it is really left of centre, and I loved it.
But moving on from games that aren't coming out,
this is what
let's
happens
come
when
to
I give you a
game
rundown.
that is coming out.
What?
And is doing something different and interesting and odd. I was actually legitimately interested by FIFA this year.
You've jumped over something.
Have I?
Yep, EA Access is giving 10 days free gaming to Xbox One customers. So you can
you understand why I forgot that?
No, because it's unprofessional and I'll never bastard. I'm sure they've given like 48 hours before like access to the vault, but 10 days is pretty cool. And there's a fair bit in there that you can attempt to play within 10 days as well. There's that Battlefield Hardline, which, cops and robbers looks kind of fun. I believe there's like a 10-hour access to that last Need for Speed game, and a lot of people, I think Darren Gargett managed to finish it within 10 hours. So there's a few bits in there to dive into, and again, free is free. So.
Yeah, I was on Origin the other day actually. Can't remember why. No. but I happened
Giving up
to
on
spot,
life, yeah.
I happened to spot the Origin Access tab, I believe it's called, on there, and the list of games that are on there that are available if you've got EA Access. Really, really good. I don't know. Do you need a separate subscription for EA Access on PC versus Xbox, or is it all one? I don't know.
Origin Access, isn't it, on PC?
Yeah, I think so.
I don't know
whether it's all one subscription or not. But the list that were available on Origin were massive list of great games. Quite a few of which I haven't played.
I'm still enjoying the phrase I was looking around on Origin the other day. That's like saying I was browsing Uplay.
Can't remember why. I think I just went on. Actually, I know what it was. I had some games installed that I hadn't touched in ages that I happened to spot on my hard drive, so I went into Origin to delete them. That explains why I was on Origin.
I came to you to get rid of you.
Yeah.
So, Paddy, because everything you talk about is football, why don't you tell us about football, your favourite game?
Mr. Football. I love it when the men kick the ball.
See, you're part of the problem
thing
now.
is, all my football patter has now been stolen by Behold the Kickmen.
Yeah, that does look really good.
That's stolen all my patter, and it feels like I'm ripping it off. No, I was talking about football in a bad way years before that came out. I really like it when the team in red get most balls in the net. Okay, so FIFA started with like a soliloquy.
Shakespeare in the football park, I believe I tweeted.
Wow, yeah, like, firstly, what, huh? Like, it was very kind of like very theatre. I thought very kind of like, oh yeah, the journey, yeah, the opportunity, ooh, like, okay, I get what you're trying to do, but get on with it.
Bless him, the actor playing Alex Hunter was going for it with all of his drama school ability.
This is the biggest stage I'm ever going to perform on. I'm fucking going for this.
He was, and to be fair to him, he was enthusiastic. He was I'm sure doing it exactly as he was asked to. But yeah, it did feel a little bit like, is this FIFA or what am I? What? No, I don't understand.
Well, essentially, they've done football the RPG, which, as I understand it,
NBA 2K.
NBA
2K has been doing that for quite some time. I know Chet and John sort of mentioned it.
3 or 4
2K14,
years,
I think,
now,
and they were saying they were quite taken with it. But don't know, looks like something a little bit different, and good luck to them. rather than just doing the
Yeah.
trotting out sort of the new version of FIFA on a different engine with different kits, and people sort of moved around a bit. I don't know. I would be interested to see how regular FIFA players take to it.
Yeah.
Also, those folks that like to open packs, and I still don't quite understand.
So
you open the pack
happened?
and sometimes you get a rare, and then you put it on YouTube with the title, all in caps, of best opening ever. That's what they're for.
So yeah, I mean,
2 million views.
the journey sounded interesting. What I didn't quite I didn't quite think was made clear was, it seems like Alex Hunter is the character you play. You can't play yourself. You can't create a character. That is the character, which is absolutely fine. But again, what I didn't quite get was, at one point I think they said you'll make choices as you go, and the things you do, the way you play, will affect how it appears. But I think they mentioned there were only like 4 inflection points in the story, which could make it kind of limited in terms of.
That was my concern as well.
How, are you always going to end up at Man United? Because it looks maybe like yes. So
no, I think you can choose your own club. Jesus Christ, don't.
Yeah, but it'll be like a field
Man United.
It'll be a field of 2.
That's exactly because they had Jose Mourinho on stage. They are making a big deal of the fact that him and 3 other managers, although all 20 Premier League managers are in there, they've made a big deal of the fact that
did that
these
need 5
4
minutes?
are. So, is it actually tied to the fact that actually you're going to end up at one of a couple of clubs
maybe.
or whatever?
Yeah. I didn't think of that because, I thought that bit was quite jarring because they talked about managers for like a good 5 minutes. It's like, you've modelled a human. Moving on, please.
Yeah, but this might be a big deal for people that love these games.
Absolutely,
and,
It is, but just because
it's not speaking to you doesn't mean that it's not speaking to somebody else who's like going like, oh my god, this looks amazing.
Well, yeah, but did it need that long? It was veering into 20 minutes of wanking on a wall territory for me at one point.
Well,
at that point,
your focus is always going to be swerved by the things that you absolutely love and you get excited about. And if there's something that you're not interested in or it doesn't catch fire with you, anything that happens after that opening minute or so is not going to be your bag.
Well, I enjoyed the story mode thing. I was actually quite into it for the first time. I was like, oh, okay, this is interesting. I know what they're doing. And then they just killed the momentum for me with the manager bit. Although I did like Peter Moore giving Mourinho just utter shit. I really liked him just giving him shit. And Mourinho just stood there and just taking it. Yeah, okay, yep, you can have that, Peter Moore.
Yeah, it looked like he'd smile and then deck him when they got off stage.
So the thing for me, I kind of get both sides of this, where a lot of people, when they're watching the EA show every year, have a pop at how much EA Sports stuff there is in there. And then on the other hand, the other people come back with, hang on, Madden and FIFA are 2 of the biggest games, not even just sports games, 2 of the biggest games in terms of sales for any company, not even just EA. Yes, people get uppity about shooters, but you expect Call of Duty, Battlefield, Titanfall to get a lot of time. Why wouldn't you expect the sports games to, basically? I think the thing for me is, I have played FIFA in the past. I've never played Madden, but I don't inherently... I get why people like sports games. I just don't like the way they are presented. I think they have a real problem because they are annual iterated games. They have to focus on what they've added this year, and out of context sometimes it's just now the faces are slightly better, and it's like I don't
now they can
I'm not sure
can run
even
and do
if,
this kind of kick move.
Exactly. I'm not sure if I was someone who played FIFA every year, I would really need you to sell me on the tech being slightly better, slightly different. Probably I'm going to buy the game anyway. So the way they present it, I don't know how they could do it better, so I'm just complaining, not actually offering constructive criticism. But
yeah, the iterative nature of these games, I think maybe versus how much time they get.
Yeah,
but
maybe.
But in that regard, we didn't get Rory McIlroy and we didn't get NHL.
Nope, you
no,
are right.
They only did the 2. It was only Madden and FIFA.
Madden and FIFA, that's it.
But then they really didn't. They really paired their show down this year, didn't they?
They didn't do. What's the kind of wrestling-y one they do?
Wrestling-y one.
Yeah, the one where you can.
Well, they
put
do
2K.
UFC now.
Oh,
don't
you
they?
mean
UFC? Yeah. They didn't do that either.
Look. No, it's not. It's not real like wrestling. UFC is fake like boxing. Okay.
Couldn't let it
Moving
go.
on.
Come fight me, Twitter.
I believe UFC's every other year, so
Oh, okay.
that may explain why.
Because that currently sits in the EA Access vault for the first one, I think.
Yeah, I'm not sure how
And the
many
new
they've done
ones.
because they did an MMA game first and then
Yeah,
got the
that's
UFC
not what I'm
license.
thinking of. Yeah.
So yeah.
Oh, because the current one is currently out in Tesco at the minute.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Good to know.
that
Thanks,
just came out
Poster
last year,
Bargain.
Look, I look at Tesco sometimes. It's
But yeah,
So
I get why FIFA's there, and yes, the journey looked like a departure from what they're doing, but I just never respond to the way they present these games.
yeah.
So
I'd agree with that. Yeah.
Following on from the success and promotion that they had from Unravel last year, which took everybody by surprise because it was very un-EA.
Yeah.
They gave us EA Originals, which seemed like quite an expansive portfolio when they were pushing it forward. Then just gave us a game called Fae.
Fee, yeah. Which I thought they said Fear to begin with. I was like, what? Really?
Yeah, I thought that as well. I thought it was maybe a pronunciation.
Yeah,
was
no,
Fear.
it was Fee, I believe.
What did you think?
I thought I expected here is one game and here is a trailer with a couple more.
Yeah,
or a sizzle reel or whatever you want to call it.
They were certainly building up that portfolio, weren't they?
Yeah, I think
things they were
possibly
working
the reason why not is both Unravel and this seem to be Scandinavian developers. I think.
Yeah.
I hope I'm not misspeaking.
Yeah.
And I think it came from EA Originals and Unravel came from DICE. That's the feeling I got last year. I think they were introduced by Patrick Soderlund, who used to be the head of DICE, is now in the upper echelons of EA's overall management. And I get the impression this is maybe it's stemmed from them or from him. And yeah, so they're getting the name EA Originals out there, which seems to be a replacement for the partner program, where they're championing these games and not expecting to make a big profit off them. I mean, they said all of the profit goes to the developer. I don't know whether that means after their expenses are cut or whatever, but it sounds like they're not doing this for the money, they're doing it for getting these games out there, which maybe explains why there's so few. They're really cherry picking the games that they want to push on this.
They did get so much love for Unravel though last year. Not just for, not even primarily, I'd say for the game itself. Everybody loved the game, but it's like, oh, this is a really un-EA thing to do. This is they're kind of pulling a Ubi.
Well, especially the way they
this
presented it with the main guy, maybe the only guy on the development team, standing with his little self-made Yarny there on stage, and obviously not being the corporate trained presenter that we often see on the stages, just standing there telling us why he wanted to make the game and about the love of creating a little yarn dude.
I've actually got a bit of a bone to pick on this because I saw a lot of snark on Twitter about, oh, do you think they've made him be nervous because Unravel worked so well last year? If that is what you think, you're an idiot.
Well,
Have you
more to
ever
the
stood
point,
in front of that many people and tried to give a presentation?
Plus
it's not easy.
all of the internet.
but more to the point, why is your first thought, right, this is EA, how are they trying to screw with me? How are they trying to manipulate me?
They had an actor, he was in football.
Benefit of the doubt, just unless you've got evidence to suggest otherwise, other than my heart is black and cold and dead.
Well, he was in Game of
evidence.
Thrones. I saw him in Game of Thrones as an extra, so...
It seems such an odd thing to always be on the lookout for someone trying to screw you over and to assume that that's the case unless you know otherwise. I didn't
Bizarre.
get that. Yeah.
Bizarre.
I thought the game looked really charming as well.
Do you know who's making it? Do
interesting,
you know what else that company have made? That company, from what I gather, have also made Zombie Vikings and Stick It to the Man.
Oh, I know, Stick It to the Man.
Yeah, which seems like it's a big departure from what they've done before. It's not an interesting 2D silly snapping game.
No.
But both of those games I thought were really good. I really enjoyed both of those games. So cautious. When I learned it was by them, like I think my interest went up a little bit because I was I enjoyed the trailer, but I don't know, something didn't quite click for me with it. I play a lot of kind of cutie platformers, not cutie platform, you know what I mean, like indie platformers. I play quite a lot of them. It didn't quite stand out, but knowing that they're making it is enough to pique my interest a little bit further because their games have been for me 2 for 2. So
it stood out nicely in the conference though as well. Because
for sure.
It was something that wasn't sort of bombast, that looked sincere, and there was certainly an atmosphere around the game, and an honesty, I thought, as well. Depends on obviously on playing it, but curious.
No, I thought it looked interesting. It didn't look like necessarily a straightforward 3D platformer. It looked like there was maybe a lot more to the singing of the songs and the manipulating of other creatures around you and stuff like that to create kind of a harmonious forest or woodland or whatever. It looked interesting, thematically very interesting to me.
And I thought the Silent Men looked cool. They look very Bioshock.
Now you were saying about the actor that was in FIFA, but how about the stealth actor that was pretending to draw things in the Star Wars presentation? There's no way that guy works for any of those companies whatsoever.
I mean, he's got working Star Wars robots in his house. He doesn't need to work for EA.
What did you get from all that Star Wars stuff? Because I remember none of it other than seeing Amy Hennig and the last from Assassin's Creed, Jade Raymond, turn up, and then maybe a bit of Vince Zampella, whatever his name is.
See, for me, it was like a minute of
man.
Yeah, it was like
looking really smug, like he just farted, and quite liked the smell of it, but also can remember from that smell what he had for lunchtime, and quite fancies it again.
Like I remember Amy Hennig and being like, "Hey," and Jade Raymond and being like, "Hey," and like a 2-second shot of the new Star Wars game from Visceral, and I went, "Way," and then I remembered The Force Unleashed, and then I went, "Ooh," and that's all I remember. Like, I can't remember anything about this bit apart from
last year,
flashes.
They got the license for Star Wars not that long before E3. I can't remember when it was. Apologies if it was massively before, but I got the impression it was not all that long before E3, really. So
and they were respectfully quite quiet about it, weren't they?
It wasn't all that surprising when they said, "We've got Star Wars. We are going to be making games." They let it be known that Visceral with Amy Hennig were going to be making a third-person action game, and they let it be known there was going to be a Battlefront. They got DICE to, I can't imagine DICE's last year to get Battlefront out. Must have been
2 years ago. That was 2 years ago.
2 years ago they first said, right.
They had a full Battlefront presentation last year, because it was the one 2 years ago was
it was literally we just got the license
through the dungeons of Lucasfilm.
They did the whole dev thing again.
We're making Battlefront. Mic drop. Boom.
That's another one of those games, Paddy, that you were really excited for until it came out.
I realised I should stop getting excited about shooters and things. I'm just like,
It's like £13 now, isn't it?
Thing is, I try them. I try them, and I just like why do I keep getting excited for them? I shouldn't be.
Are you asking me?
Tell me why.
No. Ain't nothing but a heartache.
We're not doing this.
Ordinarily we would.
But I absolutely... I get when they first announced they had the Star Wars license, they hadn't got time to put anything together. Last year, focus on Battlefront. You're right, I got my years completely mixed up. But then this year, they literally said, "Hey, we've got 3 Star Wars games already out there." Yeah, we know.
So it's anything new for them? Remaster.
Really. And
they've remastered the 2014 show. Like, yeah, we're still making some, and moving on.
It was
pulling a Mass Effect, as we call it.
It's bad. The Mass Effect and this left me with such a sour reaction to EA's show. It was literally just you. It's not surprising you're not at EA, not at E3, because you don't have anything to show. And I shouldn't feel that way, because Titanfall 2, Battlefield 1, Madden, FIFA, and EA Originals, that's not a bad lineup. There's not much to it, but it just feels like they're pouring so many resources into Star Wars, and they're giving, to be fair, they are giving them the time, apart from Battlefront, to get the game out, to get the games made and doing with it maybe what they should, making sure it's high quality, taking their time, being realistic with how long it's going to take Amy Hennig to get into Visceral, to work with the team to get something put together. Motive seemed to kind of be with Jade Raymond floating between projects to help out. But yeah, it was just, here's 3 games we've already got that are out, no more news on them. Here's what we're working on, bunch of devs' hopes and dreams again. And it's...
Amy Hennig was the bright spark there, because I love Amy Hennig.
It's odd, actually. I'm not Uncharted's biggest fan at all. Very much dwindling returns for me from those games. But yeah, Amy Hennig herself, always fascinated by her attitude towards games, the way she makes games, and hearing her talk or reading about what she's said in interviews, always fascinating, and just can't wait to see what she's doing with this.
Because I remember Amy Hennig from the Soul Reaver days.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
Days. That's where I knew her name. I was like, yeah, of course, I want to be her friend.
The thing that I find curious about the Star Wars stuff at EA and the Amy Hennig stuff is that, relating to Uncharted 4, that is it Neil Drummond, the guy?
Neil Druckmann.
Neil Druckmann.
That's Neil Drummond.
I don't know. Came on board to Uncharted 4, throughout a lot of Hennig stuff, wanted to do his own, shaped his own game, and took it on a touch. Given the positive reception that Star Wars 1313 got, I'm really surprised. I don't know how far that got in, but I'm really surprised that somebody like Hennig couldn't come on, see what was done, and go, right, I want to do this, I want to do this, I want to take it here, I want to take it here. And you've got a bunch of code, you've got some designs, you've already got a degree of hype from people that are interested in it. And then in the same way as Druckmann sort of adapted and shaped Uncharted 4 in his own vision, why couldn't Hennig take the things that have been done with 1313 and take them on a touch? My
reaction would be, we saw one clip of 1313, didn't we? Kind of the two people fighting their way along a darkened... it was up the building, wasn't it? Because it was all set in one building.
I remember verticality.
Yeah. We don't know how much else there was. Was that just proof of concept?
We saw about as much from 1313 as he has shown us on any of the Star Wars games. Also Mass Effect Andromeda.
But also... the relicensing of it, the throwing out of, when Disney took over Star Wars, the throwing out of pretty much all of the extended universe stuff, or at least the reclassification of it as not canon. It may well be that 1313 was going to be released and considered not canon from day one. Yeah. So maybe EA just decided, scrap whatever we've got. Here's the new rules as far as Lucasfilm and Disney are now concerned. Let's work within those. And we don't know how much of 1313 is going to make it into Amy Hennig's game. Maybe nothing, but tech-wise, maybe quite a bit. Although I guess EA everything's on Frostbite now, so probably.
So finally we got Battlefield 1 and the first appearance of a trailer that appeared many times.
I counted 3 times.
2.5 technically, because they only showed half the first time round in this show. And
then they showed the entire trailer in another show again later.
Yeah, it came up in Microsoft, didn't it?
Oh, we get it. Birds really shouldn't be in tanks.
It's
the thing is with Battlefield 1. I mean, they made such a splash with that initial trailer, which was fantastic. And the one when it was announced. Was a really superb trailer. The best stuff that I saw from Battlefield 1 here came after the showing, where they got Not just because there was that lad from High School Musical. He was clearly like smashed off his tits on something.
Snoop Dogg was there too, so
yeah.
I mean, being near Snoop Dogg.
Snoop Dogg was there and smoking at one point.
He was, and they took it off him. It's really funny.
It was brilliant.
I watched some of the footage being played and commented over, and the multiplayer footage was fantastic.
Yeah,
really interesting.
I really enjoyed watching that.
Like the way the stream I was watching, they were guessing as to whether like, is the Zeppelin like a levolution that, you know, will always come at a certain time, will always crash in a certain place, and it's like, oh my god, it's not. Can you go on the Zeppelin? Oh yeah, look, there's people shooting from the Zeppelin. Yeah. That bloke's jumped from the Zeppelin and is parachuting down. The buildings were taking damage and taking fire. There was lots of stuff that was. Whereas the rest of the conference, and I think this is a criticism of a lot of the conferences at E3 anyway, where people are going, hello, I am such and such from such and such. This is a game about this, and this is... and
it's all tell don't show,
this.
Isn't it?
And within this, people were getting excited because it was like, oh my god, look at this. And they weren't being told, they were discovering it and asking the questions and kind of found out afterwards. And I thought it was the strongest showing of Battlefield 1 throughout the entirety of E3.
I think so. I think there's something to be said for showing the game, and if people have questions and don't understand some of what they're saying, like the Zeppelin's perfect example, is that just an event, even if people can get on it? I mean, the commentators were saying that the British side called it in, and sure enough it had the RAF symbol on the side. And then, does how quickly the enemy takes it down, does that matter as far as where it's going to land? And it appeared to change the level drastically because an entire row of buildings just completely collapsed.
Well, it stays there, doesn't it? And it keeps burning.
Yeah, it keeps burning, and the fact that at the end there was kind of this race to the monastery, I think it was. So there was all these sorts of things that you're left with questions about, but because you're seeing it all organically, you've got questions, and it's like, but you're enjoying it all. So it's not a little bit with the FIFA 17 the journey thing. I was left with questions, but because I was being shown stuff, I was being told stuff, I was like, well, you just chose not to tell me whether he's always going to be at certain club, whether there's actually a lot of difference in one person's playthrough to another. They chose not to tell me that. Whereas when you're shown it, if there's stuff that doesn't happen to occur, doesn't happen to be there, you're like, okay, didn't get to see it at that time, but I've got this question and I want to know, so I want to find out more. So I go and watch something else, or ask, or follow up with an interview, or find the information the best way I can. It's so much more. It feels better discovering stuff that way. It really does.
But if you're talking from a publicity standpoint as well, you've got extra publicity from those questions. That everything's not encapsulated in one delivery
one
and people know
story
everything
or
about
one,
it.
yeah, absolutely.
You're getting continual press, and you're getting this kind of simmering of public opinion and expectation and excitement. I mean, this sort of multiplayer is not really my kind of thing anyway, but I do like that it seems simplified, that there's, as far as I'm aware, there's barely any loadouts for the weapons, and even the sparseness of the surroundings was really wondrul.
And the tanks and planes as well. It's just lovely to see the little sort of 1-2 man tanks, trundling around at barely walking speed. I
think, given the last few years as well, given the last few years of shooters, with them being all very tech focused and here's some drones and stuff, I think it's quite cool that it felt like the freshest shooter I think we saw at the show this year. I think from everything, from everyone, it seemed like the shooter that was doing the most different thing. Of all of them. I mean, that includes Titanfall putting a single player and putting that to one side. Imagine that from back in the glut of Medal of Honor games. If we'd have been happy to see another World War II shooter, you know what I mean? A shooter set in history.
Period shooter, if you like.
Yeah, absolutely. And the fact they're doing something a bit weird with it as well, with the sort of slightly alt history stuff, okay. I'm not going to buy it because I don't buy shooters. But
I find it fascinating that that sort of the youth is so taken by this. Yeah, but you'd have thought that. I mean, the perception is at these companies as well that kids want futuristic technology and all this sort of stuff. But there's a genuine buzz around this game, the way it looks, the fact that it's different. Even as I mentioned before, the people that are looking towards the war sites on YouTube and them doing breakdowns of the Battlefield 1 trailer and going like, oh, this is the Italian army. This you can tell this by their outfit. This weapon comes from here. I love that. It just seems like it seems to be going against the typically corporate, and there's this aspect that nobody expected to catch fire with its audience, but has.
So there's a couple of things I just wanted to mention. First thing, I think it's very smart that a lot of people were asking questions of, if it's World War One, will you have to manually reload guns? Will weapons be much slower? Will it mean you're spending half of your time not actually shooting? And they've been very smart about that. I think clearly these guns work far faster, far better. Your movement speed's faster than it would be running through boggy, muddy, trenches, etc. They've kept the speed up, even if that sacrifices some of the realism, some of the fidelity to the time period. So be it.
I think with some of the bombast they've gone for, it fits, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I think it'd be interesting if they had the mode in multiplayer where you could kind of have a realism mode that you could sneak up on somebody and go to shoot them and your gun's fucked. Like your gun's genuinely jammed or broken. That would be really this kind of random fact I like a track to show me where you lie.
The horses randomly break their legs when you're riding them.
Patrick.
I shot my own. I remember playing Red Dead. I shot my own horse by accident many times.
You're a bad man.
Not on purpose.
Still.
So it was always at the worst time. I went over a cliff once because of that.
But so if that horse is a gift and we stare it in the mouth, so comes to the end of our EA presentation. What did you make of EA's showing, Patrick?
Okay. I kind of came away a bit bored, if I'm honest. And that's not a slight on the things they showed. When they decided to show something good, they showed something good. Titanfall 2 single player stuff looked good. Battlefield 1 looked good. The FIFA thing looked good. And then when they wanted to phone it in, boy howdy did they phone it in. Like, we're making Mass Effect, we're making Star Wars, moving on. I don't know, it felt very, disjointed. It didn't feel like a proper E3 show. It kind of just felt a little bit like, here's a show that we're doing for our investors. And I know that's kind of what E3 is, but, there was no excitement there for me. I wasn't excited by many of the things they were shown. And that's partly down to my own taste. I don't buy a lot of EA games myself. That's just me.
But it is weird that it felt like the part that they super phoned in was Battlefield 1.
With the double trailer, you mean? Or?
Yeah, two trailers.
Just mean it just seemed empty. Like there was such impact and bombast with the trailer that they showed when they announced the game. That not only was the trailer sort of really by the by here, but you'd have thought that if you're showing it in 3 different places, you'll at least have 3 different things to show. They'd said beforehand that there was going to be a focus on the single player in the EA presentation, and then the multiplayer would be at a separate event afterwards, which is like, oh, that's pretty cool. But it was just empty. It was like a PowerPoint presentation.
I think it's incredibly telling that all the stuff we've just talked about, being excited about Battlefield 1 there, was all from the multiplayer match afterwards.
Yeah, absolutely.
I switched off as soon as I saw the second time they showed we're now going to show you the full trailer. As soon as I saw the same opening, I was like, well, I'm not watching this. I'm sorry. I'm not sitting through again. And it was the same at Microsoft. I was like, I'm pretending this isn't even here.
We were taking bets on whether they were going to play the whole one or not.
How
are they going to cut it off at the thing? No,
how angry must Microsoft have been that EA already showed that trailer 1.5 times and just said, here's what we've got for you? That's not... The whole point of this, if you're going to do it and show the game multiple times, is show single player once or something akin, and then multiplayer the next time. You don't do this.
Assassin's Creed did that a few years ago. A couple of years back, they showed here's some single player at one of the shows, and here's some multiplayer at the other show. Yeah. It's like, fine.
Well, normally we spoke about this on the previous show, but normally Assassin's Creed's got like it's got a definite progression through all of the shows that it's at. They'll show a little something at the Ubi show, a little something at Microsoft, a little something at Sony.
Start off with a trailer and build from there.
Yeah, they'll all be different and complementary, and as a whole, you get like a pretty decent idea of it. And I'm wondering if something's gone very wrong.
Something wasn't ready, so they just had to fill it out. Yeah, maybe.
Do you think they sent the wrong trailer?
Don't know.
Just imagine poor Johnny EA sitting there going, right, we sent Microsoft the single player trailer, right? What? Oh, shit. Email them. No, they're not answering, they're busy. Shit.
Next time, learning from this, if you Microsoft and EA go like, hey, can we show the new Battlefield at your show? I'd be like Phil Spencer would go like, no dice.
Oh, fuck me.
Well, that's good.
God.
Don't come better than that.
So yeah, I mean, I kind of feel similarly about the EA show. I think if I was an investor in EA, looking at it versus previous years, I think I might be worried. But then again, on the other hand, the games they showed were all big hitters that are probably going to do incredibly well, so maybe actually it's fine. It's just, from my perspective, a little disappointing that EA have so much in their back catalogue, if you like, that they can draw from, and I'm still angry that there's no Burnout game. And I'm never going to get over that, and it seemingly is just done now.
They're in a strange place these days, because, like, I mean, like, I'm a big fan, like, when EA do something weird, like, they published Brutal Legend, didn't they, I think, in the end. It's, like, brilliant, and, like, they were the ones that put Burnout out there, and Mirror's Edge and stuff like that. But then, like, Mirror's Edge Catalyst has come out, and, like, 4 months ago, if you'd have said, you excited for Mirror's Edge? I'd have said, yes. Now I'm like, oh, it's out?
Well,
I don't care.
Because the reception to it's been fairly...
Where they came up with a number of games that were really different, and none of them sold particularly well. Because there was Dead Space, there was the other one from Visceral, the sort of Bayonetta-ish one. You know the game I mean, anyway. But it
was Dante's
Inferno, yeah.
Oh shit, that was good.
Yeah. Well, they got Dead Space, they got that, they got Mirror's Edge, they got
Burnout
Paradise. I'm sure was that year. They got a really unusual portfolio, and none of it did particularly well. And I think the head of EA like resigned at that point, didn't he? Or he pulled it back just to like the old faithfuls, and then sort of, is it John
Riccatello at the time he'd kind of said, I'm not going to run this purely for profit. We're going to build new franchises, because no one was saying IPs back then, and we're going to try some different stuff. And
was Dragon Age part of that as well?
Well, they'd acquired BioWare, so BioWare were split between Dragon Age and Mass Effect at that point. But people say, and I don't know what EA's expectations were, but Dead Space and Mirror's Edge, both new franchises, new IPs, if we want to use that term, both sold around about the same, about 1 million copies. Million selling, brand new IP, brand new franchise, brand new game, working off of nothing. And then when they did finally take a risk 4 years later, I think, or something, on, or so, 3 or 4 years later, on Dead Space 2, that sold much, much better. So it shows you don't expect gangbusters from the first game. Builds the franchise, get people in to play the second game. That's the way that works, but they just weren't willing to do it, and they left Mirror's Edge so long, and in some people's cases they either didn't like the original or didn't really feel there was anything there for a sequel, and maybe that's been borne out because Mirror's Edge Catalyst has received a fairly lukewarm response, but it just felt very much, here are the games you would expect us to have, and nothing on Mass Effect and Star Wars, despite plenty of people just need to know those exist and they're still happy. Those still exist? Great. I'll see you whenever they're ready. And that's absolutely fine, except there's a lot of time there dedicated to just essentially exploring the fact that those games exist and how excited the developers are. And it's great that a load of really smart, really good game developers at EA are really excited about working on the next Mass Effect and these Star Wars games. Seeing their passion is fantastic. But as I say, I'm a big fan of Criterion. That studio is now working on Star Wars VR game, and the game that 2 years ago they said they were working on apparently doesn't exist anymore. So I've heard hopes and dreams of developers and how excited they are about a project, and it never came out. So why should I get excited about these when there's not really a game there yet?
Yeah, totally. What do you, CJ? How did you feel of the show as a general?
I think, I mean, but we've discussed the show and its generality anyway. But I think that if you're comparing it to the other kind of smaller shows at E3, it certainly didn't have the pace of a Bethesda. And you know, the people on stage at Bethesda for the most part were, you know, bosses of their respective companies. And I think that if you're looking at Ubi, you could say that if there's anything that EA really need, it's somebody of the passion and professionalism and sheer like joie de vivre of Aisha Tyler, because she commands that show. She's amazing. She's so professional, and she clearly in love with what's there. And I think that somebody of that ilk to present the EA show would certainly like pull those strings together and link a show and give it like a certain degree of
sense of fun.
Absolutely. Just learn to laugh at yourself.
They need a Mr. Caffeine, don't they?
Well, I think they need somebody of
they need a something. I don't know what it is.
They need someone of the ilk of Aisha Tyler, but there are plenty of people who are into games, who are actors, that are presenters, that could step into that and do a really good job.
Yeah, get Zac Efron.
It would have been interesting to see him present it in the rather baked way that he was. Did you see that lad sweating? It was so funny.
Yeah.
Just terrified that somebody had asked him a question. I don't know. Right, so that's it. Apart from, did you have anything else to add? My ginger wife.
No, I'm good because I need a wee now. So I think this would be a very good time to stop.
Yeah. I am going to go and watch Big Trouble in Little China and eat some crisps.
Crisps?
Crisps.
Nice.
Which are in the freezer.
You monster.
What?
Utter monster.
People have taken up my iced cornflakes thing, and their lives have changed. All I'm saying is...
No, you have done that yourself. They are fake Twitter accounts that you have made. Yes, good idea, me. CJ.
What, JC? Jesus coffee.
Coffee Jesus
with the S and the Z like switched around a bit.
Coffee Jesus 1 says, "Oh, good idea."
Just they're all eggs, but also coffee beans. One of them's a coffee cherry.
I like it.
Anyway,
so thank you, James, for joining us yet again.
Thank you, James, for joining us yet again.
The first of what, 6?
Yes,
yeah.
3,
4.
Needless
5.
to say, it's actually quite nice to get EA out of the way first, because there are good games that EA are releasing. You know,
they didn't show any this time.
But I ended up more enthusiastic about Titanfall 2 and Battlefield 1 talking to you guys than I was at the time of the show, simply because I knew those were coming and they weren't surprising. But actually, they look like they'll be great games. It's just disappointing that some of the other stuff felt like, and we'll be back with more on this later. You know, it's just.
Well, you know how we were talking about like that unusual sort of slate that EA had with games like a number of years ago that you know the company considered hadn't done that well. Like one of the most anticipated games from EA is actually the backwards compatibility Skate 3, which has been on the cards for ages, and people keep going like, "Oh, they didn't announce it. Has it come to backwards?" There's this real buzz over Skate 3, and like if you're looking at Electronic Arts, they're almost like, "We're not going to do another one. But people are kind of quite interested still.
But before we finish off, here's a quick stat. This show I am recording, we are now at 1 hour 43, which I believe is 43 minutes longer than the actual EA show. This is going to be a good series of podcasts.
Yeah. Settle in.
For those
Put
keeping
your
track at
crisps
home,
in the freezer.
plus 43.
Right, so the next one we'll do will be Bethesda. So tune in for whenever that one is out.
We're in for the long
Lands in
haul,
your
people.
ear holes.
Yes.
Awesome.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.